I'm Gilmore Tamney. I am interviewing Jadi Phree and D Ruff of If You Can Feel It, You Can Speak It open mic series for Brain Arts. And it's an open mic series, only monthly open mic dedicated to the LGBTQ plus community of color and its allies. And I wanted to start out by having everyone tell me a little bit about themselves, tell the world a little bit more about themselves. Poetry, how you identify, favorite sandwich, TV you're watching, go crazy. Or not. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's too late. I already picked it up. All right.
Appreciate you, bro. Holding it down.
I'm D Ruff, identifies he, him, his. I've been co-host of the If You Can Feel It, You Can Speak It open mic for about going on 11 years now. Yeah. And how I feel about poetry, that it saved my life. And favorite sandwich, that is hard, but I'm gonna go with fried bologna because it's been a rarity. It's rare. Like, come on, crisp, can't go wrong. And TV show, I was watching Ultimate Tag actually because I was trying to watch something actually just game show-ish and wanted to watch something throwback-ish, so it was Ultimate Tag. That's.
May I ask what kind of bread for the bologna sandwich?
Let's
get the important things.
So if we're doing it with it has like I recently tried it with potato bread. The potato bread. But I recently saw that they have Hawaiian sliced bread. So I'm about to try to get on that really quick.
That I love that nice squishy texture.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Phree. Tell me everything.
I got you.
Tell me everything.
My name is Phree. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am a spoken word artist. I'm also the founder of the Boys and Bullshit Collective, which is an organization for queer, masculine people of color, or masculine presenting, identifying people of color. So it's a healing space for us to kind of heal and reshape the ideology around masculinity, and how we identify with it, and kind of learn a healthier way to exist in our masculinity. It's a place of accountability as well. I'm also been affiliated with the If You Can Feel It, You Can Speak It open mic since birth. By way of Jadi. I've known Jadi for 16 years.
Oh, nice.
Years. So yeah, it has also saved my life. Poetry has saved my life, and this mic has saved my life. Poetry began as therapy for me, as a way for me to find my voice, and to kind of break through my own oppressive isms, and kind of find a way to heal through my stuff, my traumas. And yeah, that's how I exist today. Mm-hmm. Oh, my favorite sandwich is a chicken cutlet. I knew it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it used to be cheese, lettuce, tomatoes. I no longer eat it with cheese anymore because I be trying to cut out cheese in my diet. But lettuce, tomatoes, pickles. I let it. Favorite TV show? I don't have a favorite TV show, I don't think. I watch, I don't know. I don't have one. I don't know the answer to
Probably healthy that you do not have. I have like 70,000 TV shows that I've watched in the last, well, long time, but definitely during COVID. So
I'm sure like after this, I'll be like, duh, that was my favorite ever. But like, I just got through. I've been in the bed all day because I ain't been feeling well for the last, since yesterday. So I've been in the bed all day. And I just watched like a whole season of like the new Unsolved Mysteries.
I did too. Isn't it? Yeah.
So there's that part.
Yeah, no, I watched that too. All right, Juddy, why don't you?
Sure. So my name is Juddy Williams, and I identify as she, her, hers, and oftentimes unicorn. And I am the founder and co-host of the If You Can Feel It, You Can Speak It open mic. So I've been involved obviously since the inception, but I would also say that perhaps even beyond that, because the way folks know the mic now is, of course, like its existence, but prior to us actually naming the space and having consistency, there were some one-off events where I was hosting, an event that was attached to something else. So like for me, this mic has been in existence for 15 years and not just like the 11 that we're about to celebrate in November. Poetry for me and this open mic has, of course, and it feels repetitive, but it's just so true. And I hope that this resonates as a result, but it has saved my life, of course, but it has also helped me to define my life in a way, because I have had the blessing and the privilege to pour so much purpose into this mic. Mm-hmm. And for some folks, it seems dramatic because it's just like a local neighborhood open mic. But if you attend our mic just once, let alone 2, 3, 5 times, you realize it is much bigger than that. The number of relationships that we've witnessed blossom out of this mic, the number of celebrations, the breakthroughs, the healings, all the things that we've been able to support and participate in is very demonstrative of how important this mic is. And so it has really given me purpose and place, which is necessary when you consider my own personal experiences and some of my own traumas and et cetera. And like this space has affirmed me in ways that I don't think anything else ever could have. And poetry has given me the capacity and the space to unpack a lot of things that I otherwise would not have been able to process, unpack, talk through, figure out, communicate, explain, all of that, right? So like poetry and this space is just near and dear to my heart and to my soul. And I'm forever grateful for what we've been able to create here as a team and as a family. I don't really have a favorite TV show. I don't really watch TV. That has changed recently since my fiance moved in, because she came with a huge ass TV and favorite TV show. So my favorite show is anything that she's watching. I will say, however, that like if I were to turn the TV on myself, I'm going straight to either HGTV, so the design channel, okay, or I'm going to some documentary. Anything that's like fact-based and true is what I will watch on my own. But if she's here, I'm watching all the sappy, crazy shows that she watches, and I'm all into it, asking a million questions, like pissed off because it's not going the way that I think it should be going. And my favorite sandwich is a American cheese sub, preferably from Ideals on Dudley, with mayonnaise, lettuce, tomatoes, square pickles, not the little round joints. I need like the square sub shop joint with some onions, a little bit of oil, salt, and pepper, and we in there. So yeah, I think that's my favorite sandwich. I know that's my favorite sandwich.
I don't think I've ever tried one. American cheese sub. I'll have to
get you a cheese sub. Sometimes you have to say you want a vegetarian sub, depending on like what kind of places you go to, because you say cheese sub and they're like, what? And I'm like, fam, it's a sub with no meat on it. What is the problem?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty good.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like if you were starting it today, it would be like, my hope would be that the world has progressed a little bit. I know that some of this came out of you needing to find a space for your voice and community. And one would hope that that was slightly better, you know, there's more of a sense of that now. Do you feel like it would be this sort of the same thing again? Do you see, I'm sorry if I'm not putting this very well, but things have advanced.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, y'all might, I want to hear y'all's responses as well, but I think my inclination is no, it would not be the same, but it would have a different layer of power and potential to it. Because this mic started out of such a deep need that it forced us in a blessing way to foster such meaningful relationships in a very efficient manner. And like, we were so dedicated to creating a space that did not exist for us that we were willing to do anything that was necessary to keep it going. Like there was no flexibility, right? Like there was no, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, then we can go over here. Or if this doesn't work out, then we can send people here. It was like, if this does not work out, we have nowhere to speak. We have nowhere to be, we have nowhere to heal. And so there was this sense of urgency that really helped us to forge the foundation that we've been able to forge, 11 years ago. I think if we were to start this mic now, it would have to be different because Boston is different, the world is different, and we would be kind of like fitting into something that already exists as opposed to laying the foundations to inform and inspire something else that will soon grow out of that, right? And so like, I think it would be very different. And then the last thing I'll say to that is like, no shade, no disrespect to my teammates. We're a little too mature now to start the mic in the same like intimate way, because like before, I think now we know too much. Like now it would be so not rigid, but like when we started this mic, it was very family. Like it was just like chill, and it was whatever. Yeah, like it was what it was, and it wasn't what it wasn't. And whereas like now we've all been to so many open mics, and we've like traveled, and folks got poetry careers, and like we feeling ourselves, and like it's just a whole different vibe. Whereas before, now we just needed somewhere to be. We just needed somewhere to be, and I think it would be very different, but still as powerful because our purpose still remains the same. Like our identities and our hearts remain the same. So it would be just as powerful, but it would be a completely different space, I think.
Mm-hmm. I just want to piggyback off of that, being someone who identifies being queer and this space being so necessary for the queer community of color. There's still 11 years later, not a space dedicated to the queer people of color. And so I think that this mic is still very necessary. So I think that it would be the same, planted here at, 11 years later. I think it'd be a little different, sure. Though I don't think it'd be any less necessary. Though I do agree that 11 years ago, you were very selective on your option. Like you didn't have many options. You had 3 mics total, 2 mics total, whatever, and they were problematic as hell. You know what I'm saying? In so many different ways. And so when this mic was built, specifically for us, there was a dire need then. And 11 years later, as we have not missed a mic in 11 years, is still a dire need now. That has not changed in this community. So as though, there are several mics that have developed, since 11 years ago, and people have created their own space, and their own little thing. But nothing stands for queer people of color still, consistently. You understand? Somewhere where you're like, here's where I'm going every month. Here's my space. I'm locked and loaded into this. Like, this is home. So many people consider this mic to be home, and so I think that it is super necessary that we still have this mic 11 years later, and would have been still super necessary had we not, or had John not committed to this 11 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I just wanted to add that piece.
Sure, yeah. I'm glad you did.
So maybe I was the one that took it the other way. Because I was thinking if we were 23, 24 now and had to start the mic now, it's a wrap. We're getting in with everybody. Like, it's a wrap. Because, again, just like Phree said, like, just to reiterate, yes, it's still a dire need for the space. And we would still, and thinking how we were back then and how, like, just hungry and how much we needed and how much we were in the streets. Like, we were like on the road, and we was in people's fate, like, whatever. Like, you didn't want to hear our poetry, forget it. You're gonna hear our poetry right now. Like, it doesn't matter. You're gonna hear our hearts, and we'll leave. Like, but you're gonna hear this art. And then to solidify the space, that was cool. Now thinking about how technology boomed and everything else, if we was 23, 24-year-old D, yeah, I'm on the internet blasting everything. Doing everything, because I don't have nothing else to do with my life. Now,
I have nothing else to do with my life. I'm done.
Now, 2 kids in, 34, bills and yeah, yes, still very, very necessary, still very, very needed. Definitely the impact would be different. But still the same, still as powerful. But yeah, that's where I stand.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering that. I was really moved having gone to the space. I don't know, I feel like if I knew conceptual art better, I could think of a better way than saying just space, but I was really moved by the care and thought and love and just what was built. I felt like I had a very strong sense of how this was necessary, and this was built with a lot of, it probably took a lot of determination, like, this is my space, when the wider white supremacy or whatever is like, shh, or much worse than that. But I was really genuinely moved by that, for whatever it's worth. So, okay. I had actually assumed it was all going to be totally 100% poetry, but I thought it was cool that there's, like, people talking about their days, people sharing songs. Like, it was a really nice variety pack. Had that been a conscious decision, or was that sort of an evolution? And I'm also interested how you picked 4 minutes. Like, how did that become the right amount? Right?
Go ahead, Dee.
The time is actually fun. Well, the time part is funny because we usually it depends. 4 minutes just became the staple of things in between. Like, when we wanted to go like earlier, when we wanted to go 5 minutes or so, then cool.
Sure.
Right now, like, the 4 minutes just kind of stuck once we got sound, and I started to be able to add extra animation behind it, and everybody, the crowd and audience, started to get behind it. Then 4 minutes kind of like stuck. And so whenever we go outside of 4 minutes and add extra time, it's like a special event. Everybody that's a usual crowd member gets shots, and the audience and the people so it's really good. Well, at least for me, it's been awesome to at least incorporate that aspect of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other part of it is probably, we can't pretend like we're not informed by the larger poetry world. And so, like, if you've ever attended a slam poetry event, they have the 3 minute, 40-second rule, the 3 minute XYZ rule, like, there's other parameters that we've witnessed in poetry spaces. And so for us, I think, like, the 4 minutes felt just like the right amount of time to hear from one person at a time. And then if you think, if we have 2 hours and you divide that by 4, then you know that you're going to be able to fit a certain number of people. And there are times when we were at the Milky Way where we have 60, 70 folks in the room, and 25, 30 of them are trying to get on this mic, right? And it's like, how do we make sure we give enough time for you to be able to stay and do what you need to do, but then also make space for other folks? So yeah, it evolved, and as Dee said, it then just like everything else in our mic, it just grew a life of its own, the 4 minute situation. And then in terms of, like, the variety of the openness of the mic, It was always intentional. We've always said that we're an open mic. And what we mean by that is any and everybody is welcome to the mic, regardless of their talent or their skill set, like it did, you know, or their level of talent for that matter. And so that was always a feeling for us. I think it was innate to who we are as people in regards to our own intersectionalities and understanding that, like, as queer folks and as accomplices, we are layered people. And like I said, we have intersectionalities. We identify in multiple different ways. And so if we're here creating this space to break out of the boxes that we're so accustomed to encountering, why would we then come into this space and box folks into poetry? So we wanted to make sure that there was, you know, space and opportunity for folks to reflect themselves in any way that they needed to. I don't know that early on we could have ever articulated it in the way that I just did. I think we just knew what felt better. And like poetry only did not feel good to us as a group. It was like, nah, what do you need to do to feel your best in this space?
Yeah, and it was just the idea of, like, we keep saying space, right? But like, that's what it is, right? If like we're dedicating this space to queer people of color, like that is essentially literally what we want to do, right? Here's a place where you have space. So it doesn't matter what you do here, but here's an opportunity for you to be and exist in and stand in whatever identity or whatever self you choose to be that day, or whatever self you identify as, and be like welcome in a space. You know, so many places that we've been to, or other opportunities that we've had to visit other mics, they're not like, it's hard to stand up in that space and be queer and be of color. You know, we've watched other people, I speak for myself, I know, you know, but we've seen other people be butchered, you know, on other stages, you know, for being and identifying as they are. And so I think that just the idea of space and giving someone an opportunity to be that in those moments. So you got 4 minutes to be whatever you want to be, whatever you want to be. I think sticking to that and holding on to that is super important. I think people like that. You know, we've had comedians come up, you know, storytellers, literally, you know, who are writers, books, and whatever they choose to do, like they're able to share their voice to someone else, you know, and sometimes as people that's never had the opportunity to do it or felt comfortable with doing it in any other space. So I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, I love the sense of flow, and difficult stuff is talked about, and then lighter stuff is talked about, and there's all a space. I mean, not to tell you what it is, but it seems like there's space for everything. Mm-hmm. Trying to pretend like I don't have notes written out here, but so I guess I was curious. So having established this for so long, Zoom must have been, you know, has it been strange, or what have you learned? Have there been any unexpected good things? Blah blah blah. You know, any thoughts?
Hey, John, why are you looking like that?
Because I think Phree should go first, because it's Free's fault that we are on.
Why is it my fault? You can tell why it's my fault. I think it's great. We've been able to reach people across the United States, and other countries have joined us on this Zoom, on our mic. The reach is absolutely, you know, outstanding. We've had people go and talk to other people in different, like we just adopted someone that's from California that now comes on the mic every week, and we got people, you know, chiming in and tuning in from everywhere. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, and it's a way we were able to grow, you know, that we haven't been able to before. And people that don't want to step out of their house, that don't want to come out to a mic, you know, just click on their computer and they sitting in their living room, you know, laid up on the bed, got the computer open though, but they're just tuning in, you know, and feel a sense of belonging, you know, just as much as being present at the mic. I think that's a beautiful thing. That's all I'm gonna say about that,
John. What do you think, Dee?
It's been a little bit of, I guess it has been a lifesaver, especially during the COVID months. It definitely was a lifesaver just to still be able to see and feel the energy, even if it was hard. It was almost bittersweet at the same time, because I couldn't be there to like hug on and to get that physical reassurance that I was used to, as well as the emotional reassurance and everything else. So that was for me I guess the harder part of it, was just not like, hey, and just to get those hugs that I'm either used to giving or used to getting. And so really at the same time, it helped to at least like, I guess, give myself a hug, like all the times that I really wanted to feel that from everybody else, and really work on it for self. But yeah, that's what, yeah.
And not for nothing, I was able to, we were able to do Feel Free After Dark, and which is a segment that has happens after the mic now on Zoom. I feel personal about that. I feel good about that because that's like a way of like, bringing people together, that we, again, haven't been able to do in person. And like, yes, do I miss the actual physical connections with people? Absolutely. But like the difference between being at the Milky Way, R.I.P. the Milky Way, but saddens me. But like being in that space, after the mic, there's usually like a dance party, right? Whereas now, because we can't get to the dance party, we've created Feel Free After Dark, which allows people to like hang out. And, I always say during that segment, like, welcome to my living room. Like we're in each other's space, we in Ja's little kitchen area situation right now. I'm in your living room. I'm in Dee's bedroom, like I can literally be in your space and you in mine in a more intimate way. And I think that I can connect with people, in a more intimate way, like this on this screen. I know that sounds like trippy, but when we're in person, it's like in passing. I catch you at the bar and we small chatting and there's music and there's so much going on in the space that it really sometimes takes away, unless you're one-on-one with somebody, it takes away from that like, communal, intimate feeling that I think has been developed, thanks to Zoom or these like more intimate chats where I get to see like, 10 different people at once, 8 different people, and we're all sitting focused, talking together like we in a circle in someone's, intimate setting, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Right, you're seeing everybody's face, not their head or
exactly.
That's so crazy because like I agree, and I also don't feel that way. Like for me, the screen is harder for me. Like when we're sitting in the Milky Way, I feel like I can see everybody and everything. Granted, Phree and I have very different vantage points of the room. So like Phree is who you encounter when you first come to the space. So Phree is your welcome. Phree is your hello. Phree is your like, how you doing, etc. So from where Phree sits, Phree can see the back of everybody's head. Whereas Dee and I, we're standing on the stage hosting, and then we sit on the side of the stage while people are performing. So at all times, I can see everybody's faces. And there's like, it's multi-sensory for me. And I think I said this on like the second or third Zoom, and if anybody was new on that Zoom, they probably thought I was absolutely fucking weird, but I was like, I don't like this because I can't smell y'all. But like, if you think about it, like people of color, we smell vibrant, like we smell beautiful. You have hair products, colognes, shea butters, like you have it all. And so when we get in that space, and as Dee said, we're hugging each other, we're dapping each other up, or what have you, or folks are just sitting, you're getting like the thread, you know what I'm saying? Because folks come out, like folks get dressed to come to the mic, and it's a multi-dimensional experience that I'm not able to mentally recreate on the Zoom. And so for me at first, I was very disheartened by the Zoom. And the reason why I was like, Phree, you need to go first is because Phree was one of the first people in our larger 9-person team to be like, why don't we do it on Zoom? Like, why can't we go virtual? When the Milky Way called us that second Thursday of March and was like, the mic is canceled, I just cried. Like, I just panicked. I just shut down. I was so frustrated. I was so fearful of just COVID in general. I didn't even know how to function. And it wasn't until the following week that we hosted our first virtual open mic, because that second Thursday, which is our typical night, I just shut down. Like, I was like, I don't even know what to do. And so Phree was like, well, what if we do Zoom? What if we go virtual? And so I blame it on them that we're in this situation now. And like, I had my hesitations because I was like, you've heard us say at the top of the thing that, it's not, we don't profess to be a safe space. Rather, we are a working space. Mm-hmm. And we had learned how to do the work in a physical space. I had no idea what the work would look like in a virtual space. Mm-hmm. And I was like, can I protect people? Can I keep us safe-ish in a virtual space? Are people going to come? Are people going to speak? Are we going to get Zoom bombed? Is there going to be like technical difficulties? Is this an equitable approach? Like, does everybody have a computer? Does everybody have an internet connection? Like, there were so many anxieties for me. So like when you were like, oh, you had to go to Zoom, and it was like, that's exactly what I felt like coming into this. And I mean, like, now, obviously, I'm so grateful for it because it has given us all the extended capacities that Dee and Phree are speaking about. But it's still, it just does not feel the same to me. And it shouldn't, right? Obviously, it can't feel the same. It's a goddamn computer. I understand that. But, we've been talking about when and if we're ever able to go back into outside, we will keep this virtual component. We will keep this aspect, and we will always live stream in order to be able to connect with the folks that don't want to come out of their house and that like are comfortable sitting on their bed. But I think part of our magic was the ways in which we were able to be physically loving on each other in a space.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's powerful that people can still feel that virtual. Yes. There's something to the flip side of that, that speaks volumes about the space that has been created when people can still join us on Zoom and feel as connected, as if we were in person, and there's no lacking there. You know what I'm saying? And then you can adopt, there's people that are on our Zooms now that's never been physically in our space that have held on to our mic. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like, oh, nah, y'all got me. I'm here. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm locked in and I don't even know what the Milky Way is. People said that we were like all upset about the Milky Way, and somebody was like, I don't even know what the Milky Way is, but I'm here. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think,
like, I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm good.
Like, I'm good here. What you got here is what it works for me. And, I think that we can't miss that point. I think that is something very valuable, and I think, we have to be proud of that to some degree, as a space. I'm talking like as a whole, as a space, and we don't just run this space on our own. Like, it's the community. We don't have a space without the community. You understand what I'm saying? So like, I think that's powerful, and I don't want to miss that. So I agree with you, Ja, but I want us to remember that, like, without that home, people still feel just as loved as they did in person too.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I have thought some people who have a lot of social anxiety are sort of like, whew, now I can participate.
For sure.
Without all that, or less of that. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So what else? I guess I have so many questions, but I know I don't want to take up too much of your time. I wondered if would you want to talk a little bit about Black Lives Matter in terms of the reading series, or is that, I don't know if that's something that feels like activists culture being part of the reading series, or, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is this, is it feels like, I wondered if you thought there was some actual traction of something moving forward within the culture, with people talking about police abolitionism and so forth. But I don't know if I didn't hear a huge amount of reference specifically to Black Lives Matter, but if that doesn't feel like a germane question, I'm happy to move along.
I think we are activists in our own right independently. Maybe you don't feel it, speak it being broadcasted out there as, all right, feel it, speak it, BLM, does,
right.
You know what I mean? But I think independently we activate, in our own ways, and have activated in our own ways this time around, and I say this time around because it's not the first time, Can't forget 2014, 2015. You know, we can't forget Mike Brown. We can't forget Trayvon Martin. So this isn't a lot of, I hear that people say that a lot where it's like, why now? It's like, nah, there's been a thing, you know, like we've been activating. Just because there was a stretch in time where people weren't out there marching and putting BLM on the map and, you know, all this, you know, I don't want to discredit it, but I'm just saying, like, this ain't the first time. You know, we're here again, you know, and we'll be here again, unfortunately. But because the revolution, like, for a revolution to happen, like, this is continuous. This is continuous work. This can't stop. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that, you know, maybe Phyllis it ain't activating as an entity in that, right? Like, out in public being like, all right, Phyllis, speak it, stamp. But each of us has our own story about how we activate for BLM, and when I say BLM, you know, I'm talking about trans lives. Too many times is BLM separated from trans, you know, Black trans lives. You know, it's like two separate entities. And I think that that's profound to say too, because we are a space for queer people of color. So I think that, you know, in our ways, recently we had a mic specifically for, you know, because we do allow allies and people who don't identify with the queer community to come on the mic and join and be with us. And what we did was, you know, made it specifically for, like, you had to be queer, person of color in order, you know, we dedicated a space, you know, specifically to, and yeah, I don't want to take up all the space on that question, but yeah.
I would say also, like, both times, like both now and before, the mic served as a holding ground for the movements that were happening. And so, like, when I say holding ground, like this time around, you know, Phree and I talked right before the mic, and Phree is like, we have to talk about this. Like, we cannot come on this mic and not talk about this. And I'm like, yeah, no, of course, like, it's going to be a heavy ass conversation, but it needs to happen because this is our home. This is where people come to. And if you think about a lot, so like, for example, when we talked about, each time we had a conversation about the Black Lives Matter movement on the mic, folks were always coming from the perspective of, I'm so glad we're having this conversation here, because outside of here, I'm fucking exhausted. At work, in school, I'm the only this, I'm the only that, I'm the, like, and when I say only this, only that, I mean either they're the only person of color, or they're the only woke person, or they're the only informed person, however they want to identify, they're the only activist, whatever it is, they feel isolated in their day-to-day. And coming into the mic, it's like coming home to like-minded folks and having a place to express their frustrations without having to first explain why they're frustrated. And so, like, it really gave us all a place to start to unpack a lot of what was happening, and talk somewhat about the protests and whether folks were going and how folks were doing and, like, how folks were feeling about it. And so, you know, to that regard, I would certainly say that we had a moment, or we have a place in this current movement. I think bigger picture, I'll zoom out of the mic a little bit. I personally am so encouraged by what's happening right now. I feel like I keep referring to this as this generation's civil rights movement. And I am praying to God that the protests continue. I am praying to God that the volume stays up. I am praying to God that people remain pissed off and upset and afraid, because, like, it is so evident that shit needs to change. And the fact that, you know, we had to, I don't want to say that the Black Lives Matter movement ever really stopped necessarily, but, like, we all know what we mean when it slows down, quiet down. And I'm so happy that, again, like, it turned back up, because it's indicative of the fact that, like, this generation just ain't having it. We're just not here for it. And the last thing I'll say is that I think our existence alone is activism. Like, every breath I take is a revolution. As a Black queer woman, every fucking breath I take is a revolution, let alone every breath I take in this capacity, that capacity, this room, that room. But just the fact that I woke up, that's activism in and of itself. Like, and so I think, as Phree was saying, you know, we're all activists in our own way. And I feel like artists often are activists. Like, because 9 times out of 10, most artists are in their work critiquing some aspect of society, right? Like that is the general, I know that's a very blanket statement to make, but there's some validity in that. And so, yeah, we're in there in our own capacities, for sure.
I mean, and as an artist, what can you use? How do you utilize your voice? You know, especially with this quarantine, it was challenging because, like, you didn't know where, you know, like back in when I spoke of 2014, 2015, like we was out there protesting, front line. I'm out there with the signs and we're marching and we're doing all of that. Here comes, you know, 2020 and we got quarantine. We got, you know, COVID. It's like, oh my God, like I was nervous as hell to go out there. Usually that's my activism, right? I'm out there on the front lines. And so it was really hard to do that this time around for all of the protests. And so what do we do as artists? Like what can I do with my voice? If I'm a poet, what can I do with my voice? And shout out Amanda Shea, who put on Activating Artivism, which was a 2-day festival benefit where we donated funds to Violence in Boston and the Peace Institute, where we had but she had a bunch of, you know, her and JD from So Far Boston had a bunch of artists, you know, come on and use their art to get people to donate to the cause. You know, that is a way of activism. Even if you don't get out there and go on the front lines and march, you know, what can you do, you know, as an artist? What can we do as an artist to be collective, you know, and to come and unify and make change or do something with our art?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very well put.
I mean, everybody pretty much said it all. I mean, I when it first started in 2014, 2015, we were holding space, as Ja said. We had leaders that would stop by and speak and pray and heal with us. We had churches that we would go to pray and heal, and they gave us additional space for us to also have our community stop by and get everything that we needed to get, whether it was lessons for how to actually do and how to be like nonviolent in a protest and how to stand firm in everything, and really just share art and stuff like that. And we got to actually see our idols at the same time during all of this. So like it was a beautiful time, and outside of the mic, it's been an experience. Again, it is hard to not be an artist and an activist at the same time, especially being one of color. It's definitely, again, it is a revolution, just walking, just breathing, just being. And so with all of that, to actually be out there and marching now, same as Phree, I was terrified to go outside with COVID, and to see the passion of the youth, and then to almost kind of get cursed out by my mom, because I had looked on the news. It was kind of like, wow, like a few years ago, like that was me a few years ago. And my mom, like, after everything in process, kind of came to me and said, so why aren't you outside? And to kind of hear that from my mom, and you know, it was different because it took a different light as to what I was doing, as to how powerful my words were or my presence was in the movement, and how so many people looked forward to it at the same time. So with all of that, being able to be at City Hall and perform alongside with Phree, and in Violence in Boston, and it was awesome to be a part of that. So I am also very inspired by everything, and just hope the fire continues and stays ablaze.
Yeah, I was just looking to see if there are any new protests coming up. I don't know if you can hear the noise in the background, but just what's coming up now. Because it seemed like there was this huge flurry, right? And it seems like it's kind of died down.
What's funny is that it's just not being promoted as much. So like, I know that there was one that just happened on July 4th, the Say Her Name protest that was happening and that I was also a part of. So it was like, I know that there are also other movements that are happening that are continuing to happen. I know that also this past week that they had another one over at over near Grove Government Center. I know the Sisters of Calabas was down there and they were dancing and doing a whole lot of other things, doing dance for protest, I believe. So like, I know that there's other ones going on. I just also know that they're not being given the light as much, with also other things also happening in the news coverage, also, you know, trying to cover other things. So
right. Yeah.
So like not being given the light, a lot of them, not a lot of them, some of them have also not gone underground, but they've changed the way in which they're sharing the information. And so it's like more word of mouth, less social media, based off of the bullshit that was happening at some of the protests. And so that's the other part of it.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the bullshit factor? Or
yeah, no, I mean, I just think, you know, if you look at some of the protests that were taking place across the country, there were folks who were there for the wrong reasons. There were infiltrators, there were people who came to just start some shit, cause some problems or what have you, or, you know, the media was showing up ahead of the protest even really starting, ready to incite something or make assumptions, as opposed to allowing folks to just focus on what they were coming to focus on. And so I think, as true community does, you know, we responded in a way that was like, all right, cool, clearly y'all can't handle this information, so we're going to figure out a way to communicate it to one another such that we can remain true to our purpose and not get caught up in, like I said, the bullshit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really, it was been everywhere, and I thought that was extremely necessary and encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the tipping point was reading that Black Sabbath was donating all their T-shirt sales to BLM, and I was like, Black Sabbath? You know, well, probably too young to know who they are, but an old metal band. Yeah. Okay. Context. Okay. Thank you for answering my slightly clumsy questions so thoughtfully. I appreciate that. Were you able to celebrate Pride this year? Even though, did you have parades in your homes? Can you hear the noise back here? Should I move?
You don't need to move. We can hear it, but I mean, I can still hear you, so I'm fine. Were we able
celebrate Pride every day? I'm gonna take the genre approach to this question. Every day I breathe, every day I wake up, every day I go out into the world, I'm celebrating Pride. Pride is in my blood, in my face, in my body.
Yeah,
okay, that's it.
That's real. Yeah, I celebrated Pride this year very quietly. For me, this year's Pride was about my health and my abundance and the love that I'm currently experiencing. And so like I went through the whole Pride month not really saying anything, and then on the last day of Pride I posted very beautiful photos of myself and my joy in water, and then I also posted photos of my fiance. And so like my Pride celebration this year was very internal, and it was not out loud, and it was not with all the rainbows and the parades. I mean, obviously because they couldn't be, but like just generally, I was like, this one's about me. But then also, I think we were able to celebrate Pride the whole month because we had an open mic every day. Every week in June. It felt like every damn day, but every week in June. So we were constantly seeing each other, whereas like normally in June we see each other once for the mic, and it's just that second Thursday. And then lastly, I'll say that outside of being the mother of the mic, I'm also the executive director and producer for Women of Color Weekend, which is a 4-day Pride festival that typically takes place in Provincetown obviously this year we couldn't get there, so we pivoted to a virtual conference for that event in order to still host that event. And so it felt like we were celebrating still, and well, it didn't feel like we were still celebrating, and I still went through all of the mental labor of producing an event. So my celebratory spirit was still with me because my house was packed with like materials and computers, and all my Sundays were planning meetings in order to be able to prepare for that. So I celebrated it in a very different way than I normally do, but celebrated it nonetheless.
Sounds more personal, like
Yeah.
private kind of thing.
But again, it was tough because of COVID, and like Pride Month and this time of the season is like, you know, especially as an artist, like I was looking forward to this kind of turn because, you know, you get a lot of, you know, gigs and events and different things that, you know, you miss out on, and being prideful in that, you know, and being able to be part of a lot of queer events. And that didn't happen. And one of our biggest mics, the two biggest mics we have is Pride mic and Anniversary mic, you know, June and November are two huge mics. So it was beautiful that we got to be there every week with each other, but it kind of took away from like that impact. Like, it's like you live for these two, like you live for the mic, but you live for these two times a year. You know what I'm saying? Like we open the entire space up. We triple our numbers sometimes. Like people really show up and show out for Pride and for Anniversary. So I think that kind of took a hit, where it kind of like just made it like I don't know, it just felt so everyday to me. It felt so like, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, every day seems a little bit the same anyway. You know. Yeah, that sucks to have your it's like really special time, you know, yanked away. So did you want to say something as well?
I mean, I celebrated differently, and I guess it was very, very different for me to be able just to be more mindful. This Pride, being the heterosexual cisgendered male in the group, like that's what I had to be mindful. So this month I had to take a back seat when they said that they had hosted a mic where it was just really primary dedicated to the cutie pot and trans and non-binary. Like, I sat down, I didn't host. Whoever tried to jump up and try to be, why can't we? Nah, that's good. And I think for me, I think it was best that it was like this when it happened, because otherwise I would have to stand outside by the door in case anybody that was like me tried to step up and be like, yo, why can't we go in? Nah, it's not our mic this month. Like, go home. Like, so that to me, this month for me was definitely like very, very more intimate, definitely very, very more insightful. And at the same time, like that was my way of celebrating Pride this month.
You're kind of a bouncer a little bit.
Just a little bit, just a little bit, but you know.
Okay, well, let's see, we're at 41 minutes, so maybe I should just ask a few more. Is that okay? Are you guys doing okay? You're probably ready to go get your dinner. I guess I'm a writer nerd, so I always like to hear things like, is there any writer or artist that if you could meet, you would freak out?
Dead or alive?
Oh, go crazy. Whatever you like.
Go ahead, Phree.
You gotta get Maya out here, you know? You gotta get Maya.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wait, I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Maya Angelou.
I know. I would. I mean, that's my first. I know it's different for everybody, but that was my first real. Like, you've heard of other poets and Edgar Allan Poe and like all these people, but like Maya was really the one for me that kind of made me feel comfortable in my own writing, you know, like something, you know, we always look for representation or like somebody we can like relate to or like visibility, right? Like somebody you could hold on to be like, wow, like you inspired me to be able to speak a truth, you know what I'm saying? And I think for me, that I would have loved to.
Yeah.
You think you could
Just to ask questions. I want to know what her life was like. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to know her journey. I want to know. I got questions.
I guess like we've already met them, but I definitely would want to meet Saul and actually Saul Williams and sit down with him again. Just especially in these times, because I definitely know like it's something that not something that I'm missing, but it's just something that there's a detail that he would be able to find, that he would be able to speak to, and he's definitely like an inspiration for me, where it was just like, talk your truth. And he was the first person that was kind of like the have me be comfortable in myself, in the rawness of poetry and the truth of it. And if your heart is if your heart is good, then that's going to reflect in your work. And just to, be able to just to grab certain things from him and learn some more. So that's definitely a person I would want to sit down with.
It sounds like neither of you were or wouldn't feel tongue-tied or like shy.
Give me Audre Lorde too. I'd like, if I can get Audre Lorde and Maya together in one room, I'd be set. I'd be good to go. That's like both my
exploding.
I would definitely have to second Maya Angelou, because I feel like it was in reading her books where I figured out that I was allowed to write my own story. I don't think before I read her books as a teenager that I realized that you could do that. Like that thought had just never crossed my mind. And although I met her once, it was not obviously a conversation, right? It was like in passing at Boston Symphony, and it was hundreds of folks, whatever. So I would definitely have to second Maya Angelou. I would definitely say Audre Lorde, Zora Neale Hurston, James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, essentially like the entire Harlem Renaissance. I'm just going to add, because if you think about what they were doing and how they set the tone for so much of what's happening right now in the spoken word community, particularly for like queer people of color, Sam, I would have loved to have sat in any one of those living rooms. And I might have been shy, but I'd have figured that shit out real quick. I'd have been like, all right, we're going to have to get over this because I need these blessings. Like, I need this level of, it's not even boldness, but like, I need this level of hear me roar that I feel like all of those authors have and had and gave to a lot of us. So that's a long list, but I would.
They're just revolutionaries in their own right. They paved the way. Like, I feel like you can't not, like, you just have to speak of them, especially as a poet and a writer. Like,
yeah, it's
just like, yeah, duh. Especially, a queer of color writer, like, duh. You know what I'm saying? For some of those. So.
Yeah. I just keep thinking of James Baldwin in that documentary and just how tired he looked. I just was thinking, like, he's telling people things they don't want to know over and over and over again. I just, he's a wonderful writer. Well, is there anything else we should cover that you would like to, with the I guess I'm conscious of the Milky Way closing. I don't know how hard you're going to be looking for a new space. But if there's any thing you want to throw out about finding a new place, maybe it's too soon in COVID, but
yeah, the Milky Way conversation is so layered for so many of us. And like for me personally, I said this once on the mic, and I still have not actually taken the time to fully articulate how I feel about it, but like, in my adulthood, I grew up at the Milky Way. So like, yes, like hosting the mic there is one chapter of my experience at the Milky Way, but I've waited tables, hosted, and bartended at the Milky Way long before we started hosting the mic there. And I was at the location in Hyde Square, the original location, and then I moved to where it currently is. And the Milky Way was such a safe space for me at so many times in my life and in so many different ways that like I can't even begin to explain how devastated I am by what's happening. Like it just feels fucking unfair, especially when you consider how much COVID has already fucked shit up, but like how much COVID has already taken from communities of color, let alone queer communities of color. And then like if you read a lot of the articles that are coming out about the Milky Way, it's resoundingly a discussion about how the Milky Way is one of the only safe spaces for queer folks of color in the city. And it is, I don't think I realized how true that was until I was told I could not go back to the space. And my immediate thought was like, there is nowhere else I can host my mic. I know that's not true, but like that's what I felt, because like at the Milky Way, I was not worried about us being mistreated. I was not worried about people being disrespected or being feared. I was not worried about our music, the volume of our music, the content of our poetry, the representations of our bodies. Like I knew when we showed up that we were home because of the hearts and the minds of the folks that ran that place. Like the one, it's a small example, but it's one that I think is interesting. And I was talking to Carol, one of the owners, recently about this. I was like, but Dex was one of the security personnel at the Milky Way, and he is a tall, solid Black man. Like he is as tall and as solid and as Black as it gets. And 9 times out of 10, when you see a person like that at the front door of a nightclub in Boston, you are immediately expecting to be disrespected. You're like, that's just what you're accustomed to happening. Like you're accustomed to them being rude and aggressive, like unnecessarily aggressive and unapproachable and etc. And Dex was nothing like that. Dex was like, how y'all doing? Let me see your ID. What's going on? If there was a problem, he was working with us to try to like handle it and not like ready to just like toss bodies and be disrespectful. And I'm like, that to me is exemplary of the heart of the space. And so like people keep asking us, where are you going to host the mic? And the sad and frustrating answer is I don't know. I don't know, because not only am I, aware of the fact that the Milky Way was such a special place, but now also with COVID, we have to take into consideration, like at the mic, honey, the seats were side by side. You might as well have just been sitting on somebody's lap, okay? Knees on your back, somebody's thigh was on your thigh. Like we were close, and I just don't think folks are ever gonna feel comfortable being that close to one another again, at least not anytime soon. And so how many spaces realistically in the city of Boston are going to be affordable for us to be able to have enough space to spread out, still convene the mic, still feel safe, seen, and heard, still be able to do food, still be able to do parking, yada, 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 yada. Like there's just so many layers to it.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to it.